Brandon Bussi signed a contract extension with the Boston Bruins, but it probably doesn't mean much in terms of the 2023-2024 NHL roster. We're going to talk about the goaltending situation a bit more in depth on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today we're talking about goaltending as Bussi makes an appearance here. Quick reminder that you can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. Now, on Monday, the Boston Bruins made their first kind of off-season signing announcement. And it was a goaltender. He's 24 years old. No, not Jeremy Swayman. It was Brandon Bussi, who signed a 1-year, 2-way contract through next season with an NHL cap hit of $775,000. Bussi appeared in 32 games for Providence this past season. A very impressive record of 22-5-4-1 with a .924 save percentage and a .240 goals against average. He played so well that he was chosen for the 2023 AHL All-Star Classic. He's a native of Sound Beach, New York, and went undrafted, signed by the Bruins to an entry-level contract in 2022. After, decent showing at Western Michigan University. He's now played 37 games for the Providence Bruins with an exceptional save percentage so far at the professional level. He doesn't have any NHL appearances to his credit. And, a lot of people yesterday were saying, oh, Bussi's re-signed. It means Ullmark's gone. That's so far from the case. Because, like I said, Bussi hasn't even made an appearance at the NHL level as of yet. And it's a 2-way contract, meaning he's likely going to be playing in Providence once again. Perhaps getting the odd call-up if Ullmark or Swayman or blank gets injured. We'll talk about who blank could be in the second segment here coming up. But Bussi firmly third on the goaltending depth chart at the moment. And the Bruins still have a couple guys in the system that need contracts as well. Kyle Kieser, Michael DiPietro are both restricted free agents as well. So do they flip one of those guys? Do they keep both? 3 goalies is a lot to carry on the AHL team. One guy needs to play elsewhere likely, and we'll see who the odd man out might be. But for now, Bussi, again, a very, very good season for Providence last year. 32 games played, 22 5-4 with 4 appearances in the playoffs. And his .924 save percentage was second in the AHL among regular goalies. And he's sandwiched between some pretty good prospects. Dustin Wolf, who's in the Calgary system, Joel Hofer, who is in the St. Louis system. You had Joey Decord up there as well. These are some guys who could be in the NHL this next season, and Bussi's one of those as well, given the opportunity. But I don't think it will be as a partner to Jeremy Swayman because that's just not enough experience that you're carrying. Swayman has yet to step up as a bona fide starter at the NHL level. Yes, he is very good and is capable of that, but to put that pressure on, there's a reason why they didn't go with Dan Vladar and Jeremy Swayman when Tuukka Rask had his hip surgery and eventually retired. They needed that veteran presence. And if Ullmark is going to be dealt for some cap savings, it's not going to be, I don't think, to carry a goaltending tandem of Bussi and Swayman because there's just not enough experience there to make it work. But good on Bussi for getting that contract extension. I'm excited to see his continued development at the AHL level, and it's very likely that he will make his NHL debut at some point this coming season because we know that goalies rarely make it through without some health issues coming up along the way. After the break, we are going to discuss, let's say Linus Ullmark is indeed traded because they need a new deal for Jeremy Swayman and because they can't afford to carry, say, $9.5 million in goaltending when they're in this cap crunch. Ullmark's value will never be higher. Say you don't get a goalie back. Who are some of the free agent options that are out there that they could take a look at and perhaps sign on the cheap to spell Jeremy Swayman from time to time? Before we get into that, let's talk about eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the place to go for all the best parts at the right fits for your vehicle. A championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. With that green check, you can be guaranteed that it will be the best fit for your vehicle or your money back. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit. Now, this guaranteed fit applies only to U.S. customers on eligible items. But again, visit ebaymotors.com, add your vehicle to My Garage, see all the right parts, and there's 122 million to choose from. So you will be back on the road in no time with eBay Motors. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. Tomorrow on the podcast, we're going to discuss the buyout of Oliver Ekman-Larsson and whether or not he may be a good fit for the Boston Bruins on a cheap contract. Today, though, we're talking about goalies. And there's going to be quite a few hitting unrestricted free agent status that could prove valuable for the Boston Bruins if they decide to part ways with Linus Ullmark. And that is a big, big if. We'll talk about that later in the program, what the more likely scenario is. There's a few guys, though, who are unrestricted free agents that could be tantalizing to the Boston Bruins on the open market. If you look at unrestricted free agents who led in wins last year, you have a guy who we know Don Sweeney had his eye on several years ago, and that is Martin Jones. Martin Jones, of course, was acquired from the Los Angeles Kings in the Milan Lucic deal, and then was flipped to the San Jose Sharks. Now, with in the Sean Kuraly deal that involved a first-round pick as well. He had 27 wins for Seattle last year, an .886 save percentage, though. $2 million cap hit. Maybe looking for a bit of a raise, but again, the whole point of this exercise is to say if Jeremy Swayman is going to get market value, you look at comparables like Spencer Knight, Jake Ottinger, Carter Hart, they're all in the fours. Jeremy Swayman is worthy of a contract worth about $4.5 million. Are you going to want to pay upwards of $9.5 million for both your goaltending tandem when you have a lot of cap concerns and also you are used to carrying those two goalies for about $6 million? So say you get Swayman for $4.5 million. You're looking for a guy who could be signed for a couple $1 million to serve as a veteran backup. Martin Jones is available. Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta in Carolina are available. You're not going to get those guys for that cheap, I don't think. Joonas Korpisalo, who played for Columbus and the Kings, .914 save percentage last year. He's a guy that I'd really be interested in. He's only 29 years old, $1.3 million last year. Could be due a bit of a bump. Could be in high demand. But he's a guy that I would definitely look at on the open market. You have Cam Talbot coming from Ottawa. Jonathan Quick, who played for LA, was traded to Vegas. James Reimer, no thanks. Semyon Varlamov. He only had 11 wins last season, but .913 save percentage. These guys are all well advanced in their careers, mid to late 30s. If you're looking at guys who are younger and who could be around for a couple years, you got to look at Korpisalo. Who else could be out there? Yeah, that's pretty much it for for unrestricted free agents. So the question is, can you get, say, Korpisalo for less than what Ullmark is making? Almost assuredly, that's possible. Can you, Bessie, get out of the way. Can you get equal value? Well, it's going to be hard to replicate for anybody Linus Ullmark's performance from last season. So you have to weigh out whether you want to keep that tandem of Ullmark and Swayman together. How valuable is that relationship? How valuable is that partnership? Can they once again compete for the Jennings Trophy? Or do you need that cap space to fill needs elsewhere up front? Again, they only have 15 players signed at the moment with about $5 million in available cap space. The cap casualties will likely be Mike Riley, perhaps Derek Forbort, Taylor Hall, perhaps. And if you're going to be cutting from the blue line and perhaps reducing the potency of the offense, then goaltending is going to be at a premium. You're going to want to have that strong duo on the back end. So, do you go for one of these aging veterans like a Jonathan Quick, like a Cam Talbot, Semyon Varlamov, Joonas Korpisalo, probably the most attractive guy on the open market based on his age and how he played last year. There's going to be some guys who maybe don't get qualified as restricted free agents. I look at a guy like Mackenzie Blackwood, who has fallen out of favor in New Jersey. You have Vitek Vanacek. You have Akira Schmid, who broke out this past season. Do they let him go? And do the Bruins jump on a guy like Blackwood and say, well, perhaps he could be a good reclamation project on the cheap with Jeremy Swayman? You also look in Detroit, for example, and you have Alex Nedeljkovic, who was buried in the minors last season. He's an unrestricted free agent, only 27 years old. He's a guy who, was in the Calder conversation a couple years ago. And that could be a reclamation project as well. Works with goalie Bob and really comes back. So if we're talking about this option, Nedeljkovic, I think, would be a good option. Korpisalo, the best option for sure. Mackenzie Blackwood, a possibility. And then you're looking at guys like Quick, Varlamov, maybe Martin Jones as well. What's the most likely scenario? Well, we're going to talk about that here after the break. All right, so we've discussed Brandon Bussi re-signing with the Boston Bruins. It's a two-way deal, meaning likely he will continue his development at the AHL level primarily, perhaps called up here and there in the event of injury. Linus Ullmark is under contract for 2 more seasons at a cap hit of $5 million. Jeremy Swayman, a restricted free agent who could command $4.5 million on his next deal. If you look at the comparables, like Ottinger, Dallas, Carter Hart in Philly, Spencer Knight in Florida. These two guys really value playing with each other. I was listening to a interview with Linus Ullmark yesterday on a Leafs podcast that is co-hosted by Carter Hutton, who is an old goalie partner in Buffalo. He was certainly talking like a guy who's going to be back, that he has all these expectations on him now as a likely Vezina Trophy winner. You don't just want to be good once and then flame out. You don't want to be a victim of serious regression. It's likely going to happen, but you don't want to fall off the map too hard. He and Swayman have such a good relationship. Obviously, we all love the goalie hugs. Is it possible that he gets traded? Well, yeah, very much a possibility. We don't know what Don Sweeney's thinking. As much as people put it out there on Twitter, what they think would happen or what they're hearing is going to happen, there's very few like legit Bruins insiders out there who break news before it happens. It's usually reactionary afterwards. Don Sweeney, Cam Neely keep things close to the vest, and we know that they don't want the embarrassment of a huge fall off after winning the President's Trophy, losing in the first round. You want to come back competitive. You want to run it back as much as you can. The Bruins have much more cap space available next summer, and hopefully the cap will go up significantly more as well. Ideally, what happens is they sign Jeremy Swayman to a 1-year deal at less than what he deserves, quite frankly, with the promise that they will take care of him beginning next summer and moving forward. They can absorb 1 year next year of both guys making big money. They can't really do it this year. So if they can convince Jeremy Swayman to take a 1 year, not really a show me deal, because he doesn't really need to show anything. He's shown that he can be a starter at the NHL level. It's more of a do this for us and we'll take care of you next summer. That's risky, of course. What if he injures himself and he doesn't have that long-term security? It's kind of betting on himself, betting on the duo as well, and maybe when Ullmark is a unrestricted free agent in a couple years, he returns the favor to keep the duo together and accepts a team-friendly deal to stay with the Boston Bruins. How cool would it be to have this duo together for quite a long time? The key, of course, is making use of both in the playoffs, as hopefully Jim Montgomery learned this past season. I think that's a likely scenario. I think they signed Jeremy Swayman to a 1, maybe 2-year deal at lower than market value, and then take care of him on his next deal by giving him a long-term, much bigger money deal. If they do decide to trade Ullmark, I don't think it will be a Swayman Bussi tandem. There's just not enough experience there. And there are some guys on the open market who could step in. But then you have, the same story that you had when Ullmark came in. A new city, new system, new teammates, takes time to acclimate. It's better to roll with what has been working in the regular season at least and keep this tandem together. That's what I would like to see, certainly. And, goalie hugs aside, those are fun. They have a great relationship, but they're also a very effective goaltending tandem, and that is the bottom line for the Boston Bruins. Who's going to get you the most wins? Who's going to give you the best performances night in and night out? And you have to believe that they can replicate their regular season and learn from the playoff experience as well. All right, that's today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. I hope you are all doing well, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Tomorrow we'll be back with a look at the blue line. Could they sign Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the cheap after buying out or trading some guys? It's a possibility for sure, and we'll talk about it on tomorrow's episode because we're here every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care, friends.